But very often, everything in Ghana is emergency. So by the time you say Jack, it is already there. The next thing you hear is that, oh, it has been approved. And instead of going through this thorough screening process, which gives it legitimacy and real legitimacy, we don't do that. And this is over a long period. So you have this going on without looking at this process. So National Development Planning Commission, what we have done by way of resolving this is to automate this process. So now we have National Policy Almanac, which is looking at all the policies which are existing. We put them on computer, we're developing a technology such that once you put it there, it will use AI to be able to identify those existing policies that are related to the very one you are proposed. And we'll be able to check whether it's conflicting or complementary. And then it makes it easier for the Attorney General to then craft a good statute which will not conflict with the existing ones. This is by way of responding to it. But the larger thing is there. Going forward, if this one is not put into a legal process, this one is young men and women who have learned the AI, who are applying their skills, and I'm supporting them. We are giving them this support to do it. But it is not statutory. So these are some of the things we're looking at. The other thing which is crucial for us, and I think I must mention it, is the capital development, because it relates to resources. What portion of our resource do we put into capital? What portion do we have to put into the recurrent? What do we have to do that? And what is the basis? Because that then tends and indicates in the future where we are going. That must be based upon objective analysis of data to be able to see that this is how much we can put into capital, and this is how much it will yield over the period, and therefore be able to service this capital over the period. Basic. And this is a function which the Public Financial Management Act has given to NDPC. Even with the airline, it is very specific that before the national budget is approved, the National Development Planning Commission must cost all the programs and projects of the country and be able to justify. The Act has specified even how the justification is done. Justify that these can be carried by the country. Carried means that we'll be able to pay back at a good time. This is it. But over the period, my colleagues are here, whether we've had the chance to link these things out, it has become a very good academic exercise we undertake every year. But when it comes to budgeting, even institutions without plans receive resources. They don't have plans. They are not justified what they want to do. And then they come up with a budget. Honorable, you are here. You are also here, Honorable. It goes through Parliament. And it's approved and appropriated without a plan. And the Act says it. The PFM Act 21. It says that you can never have a budget approved without a plan, and it's very specific. But many plans have been approved, many budgets have been approved without plans. What I always question, and when I meet my honorable members, is the plan is brought to you, you approve, it's your document. The budget is brought to you, you approve, it's your document. At the end of the year, we send a report of the status of development, we send it to you, you approve. All the three documents are your documents. And yet, they are not speaking to each other. This is fundamental. And it brings us to the next point, which I'm talking about, ownership. So who owns the plan? If we know who owns the plan, then definitely the resources that will respond to the plan will be owned by them. And that is why when we finish, we send it to Parliament, the people's representatives, so that they own it on our behalf. And the budget is safe. So why is it that these two documents are not talking? We've done the measurement. My director of MAE is here. The local governments, we've looked at their plans and how the proportion of the plan that are implemented. The local governments, their rate is about 70%. So 70% of the budget that they prepare, they implement. They put their budget to it. What is happening at the national level with our ministries? Their rate is 40%. And yet they say that local government do not have capacity to implement. It means that 60% of their decision is outside their own plans, which they prepared for us to approve. And so long as 60% of your activities are outside your own plan, you've lost the legitimacy. You've lost it. Because the parliament approved for you on that basis. And then yet we send a plan to them every year. So this is the challenge. The legitimacy brings in the ownership. And I think that we have to ask ourselves again as a country, who owns the plan? If the plan is owned by the people, then our resources must respond to the plan. If our resources respond to the plan, that is where we can realize continuity. And I want to emphasize that. So if a government comes and they stop implementing one project, it's not political. We have established that you don't need to measure your plan to your budget. You don't need to link. So if I come and decide not to link, I haven't committed any offense. That is it. But if the plan is linked to the budget and we ensure that it's linked to it, there will be continuity. There will not be roads uncompleted around blocks as far back as 1972. And I pass by that structure every week because it's along the Cape Coast Takoradi Road. There's a police station they call the place Perry Junction. The structure is on your left when you are facing Takoradi. It's 1972. It's a 3-story structure and it's been there. Okay? So these are some of the pertinent things, and it's fundamental. The ownership. And therefore, when the act was passed, it did not specify anywhere that the plan might be sent to Parliament for approval. All our statutes, it's not there. And that's our observation. But we'll be doing it by convention, sending it to Parliament for approval. But there's no statutes which compels us at National Development Plan. Once the Commission approves, we are finished. But we did that. The other thing which is tricky in our constitution, which makes these plans very, very difficult to implement, is one particular act, which requires the president, once elected, to come out with his own program, the Coordinated Program for Economic and Social Policies, which is in our constitution, I think 35(6). It says that once you are elected, within the next 2 years, you must bring that one out. And I've always been asking the logic of planning. Where does it sit? Because you have a long-term vision, which is often 20-year plus, which indicates where we want to go as a country. Then you have a medium term, which brings this down to about 4 years, which is a medium term. So I ask myself, the Coordinated Program for Social and Economic Policy, where does it fit in this process? Is it a plan? No. Is it a long-term plan? No. But we put it there. And it's a requirement. It's the only thing which is required by our constitution from a president by way of plan. And it says that when you are elected 2 years after. 2 years after, when there's a plan in the process, the president presents coordinated program. So what happens? Two competing documents we've established in our own statutes. And I always say that until and unless we tackle this issue, whichever process we want to undertake to do that through the parliamentary means, plans will always be peripheral to this one. And very often, we also have a way by convention supporting presidents to prepare so that they don't deviate so much from the plan. But that becomes voluntary. Because they did not say NDPC plan, they said the president's plan. The president policy, coordinated policy is required. But we support in the preparation in order not to make sure that at least it is malleable, it comes to the point where we can also bring it closer to our plan. And that is the key thing. So the question is, which one do you bring the budget to respond to? And then in our own statutes, when you go to the 921 PFM, it makes reference to a plan, a medium-term plan, not to the coordinated program. So then you bring the basic planning logic. And while that logic is not there, you establish competition, definitely. You created a fertile ground for conflict. And basically, Honorable Chairman, this is our baby. This is our problem. So NDPC only becomes, this time even below advisory, but I call it peripheral consideration when there's a problem. But advisory, do you go and advise on the coordinated program or you go and advise on your own plan? And by convention, what we have done is that we've used the coordinated program to serve as a dialogue, particularly between the party's constitution and the national plan, so that they don't deviate so much from it. But indeed, we have created that conflict by our own constitution, making that a requirement without mentioning of the plan. So it's a choice. And so I've received that question so many times. Why parties implementing their constitution? What we have done, amicably, is to make sure that the constitution, manifesto is in line with the coordinated program, which then becomes a guide for the medium term. And that is our own convention. But by the statutes, it doesn't provide for that. It creates serious conflict for this process. The other thing has to do with the composition of the commission. The commission now has 49 members. Because, yes, 49 members. Because you have the official, what we call ex-officio members, Minister of Finance, Bank of Ghana Governor, Government Statistician, the Director General of NDPC. These are the ex-officio members. And after that, we also have experts who are appointed by the President. And I must say that these are, of course, very good people. Many of them are accomplished citizens with a lot of experience who sit on the commission. And I always say they are the cream a la cream when it comes to real development issues. But then, there are also ministers who also sit on the commission. And these are also appointed by the President, and often around the figure of 10. And then you have regional representatives appointed by the Regional Coordinating Council of each of the regions. So that is the commission. I am only secretary. That is the commission. But that is the Director General who works with the commission. But the point is that, and out of that, the President also appoints the chairman from outside this. And then the commission elects a vice chairman out of their numbers. But where in the constitution it says that every half year the commission must interact with the President. That's the least. So the kind of advice, the channel for advice, that is what the Constitution created and the Act created. Half year, We interface with the president. And then finished. That is what our own statute says. But we have developed some conventions, writing policy papers, send it to the president to advise on some of them. These are conventional. But the actual advice is half year, the president meets you. And then all these Augustine people with all the knowledge, they have to bring it to bear in the president, during that encounter. It's not feasible. Clearly not feasible. Because that is the time you need to influence policy and direction. I mean, once a while. Half year meeting at most 3 hours, I don't think it will bring anything substantial and influence the course of development, interface, and advice on some of these issues. So that is one area, Honorable Chair, I think we have to look at. We have to look at that. But the worst thing is that even if this commission wants to work, and I said it earlier on, the resources to get these people who have volunteered to facilitate their work is a big challenge. By the statute, we are supposed to meet 6 times a year. 49 people, 6 times a year, together with the executive committee meetings, which is vital, because these are technical people, they can influence the course of the country. But my Director General Services is here. If we have a budget of 340,000 to service all these 49 people for 6 meetings in the year, many of them are traveling from all these regions. We're not serious. That is what everybody will say. We really don't want the commission to function. That is clear. The other one, which is even most crucial for us, is where lies the power of the authority of the commission. Very nice that. If, let's say, we have a national cause which is going apart, the commission thinks shouldn't, how can they influence it? What platform? Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it out of the 3 hours of meeting? Where do we do the analysis? How do we influence national budget? How do we influence the development course of institutions? How do we bring in the private sector? How do we get in our traditional leaders, our eminent persons in the country? When do we engage them? How do we engage them? International practices show that. In India, I'm sure Honorable Chairman knows it better than myself. The institution there now, they call it NITA, National Investment and Technology Authority. So they virtually direct. All the miracle we are seeing in India in terms of their development sits with them. They direct. And virtually they indicate where money must go, where resources must be placed. But these are people who have gone through it and they know it. And I'm very sure that the technical people who have on the commission, if they should be aided and provided with the needed statutes and resources, they will be doing a similar thing which India is not doing anything. It's a part they did. The digitalization process is something that came from this, our contemporary institution, the NITA. And they virtually sing in the president's listings. They sing in ministry's listing. That is what happens. And so, the National Development Planning Commission, I call it, is a veritable august institution. But we can make use of it if we want to. The final one is the inclusion, which I've said. How do we include and bring in everybody? And that is why this institution is apartisan, apolitical. It is an institution of development. And therefore, we need to bring in all these faiths, people to think with us. And if you look at the component, what is the composition? I'm sure it's one of the few institutions, apart from the judiciary, that sees members who have crossed one government to another. Yes. Some of the Director Generals in NDPC served for 10 years across different parties. It tells you this is a formidable institution which can help us if you nurture it well. through its statutes that we provide, through the resources that we provide, through providing the needed motivation for some of these young men and women who have devoted their life to it. Sometimes I wonder how they survive. Some of us are fortunate. We live somewhere before coming, and so we are here and we manage. But I look at some of them here. You know, a director at National Development Planning Commission, you give 3,000 Ghana cedis a month. I wonder how they survive. And so, poaching is a common thing. My director of general services is here. Somebody say, why should I tell them their salary? But that is the reality. If you don't say it, nobody knows it, and nobody will cry for you. So, but it is the reality. That is the reality. So every day in and out, it's either somebody going to the World Bank, Ghana Bank, Bank of Ghana, Airport, National Airport Authority, and every day we are losing. Very people who want to plan for this country. And we see things, and sometimes we are not able to respond. We look at some of the special placements of some of our services. We have 2 hospitals 12 kilometers from each other. Serving which population from where? But the response to this is planning. We see the Volta River lying there, and the roads leading from the southern part of the country to the north. Every time going back, suffering. But this water system is a veritable resource created way back in the 1960s to be able to provide means of transport. What are we doing? It requires a long-term plan from government to government. And this, I'm not only saying it, I'm not singing it, it's documented. It's in our Ghana Infrastructure Plan, with all the technical analysis done by Ghanaians. And we paid for it. But yet, you bring it to the medium term, everybody wants to have something which can yield within 4 years. Then they can point to it and say that we did this. So who will look at constructing a road from Accra to Tamale? Nobody will look at it. Who will look at the river system? Because they cannot complete in 4 years. So these are key things. Changing skills. Bringing in the needed knowledge to the country for Ghanaians to take it up. Going through a training that brings up precision as a key thing. Going through a training system that looks at not only the knowledge and skills, but also attitudes. And that is why you bring an Indian here, immediately the profit shoots up 15%. Because they have something we don't have. And you can't create this in 4 years. It's a whole generational process. And how do we plan for that if we don't rely on the long-term planning process? The fortunate thing is that we're doing it. At least there's a commitment that will review the long-term plan in the space of all this that is happening. And we are doing that. And it's one document which will launch and will cross government, one government to another. Because it was started in 2015, completed in 2018, presented to the president. The president says, with the current happenings, we should review, bring in some of these elements and see how. Fortunately, the commissioners put their task rate, and the young men and the women here, are working on it. And I'm very sure that when we finish, at least we can showcase it. That is a document which has been worked on by 2 different governments, indicating where we are going as a country. And basically, it hasn't changed. It is working for us to be prosperous, working for us to have access to social services and ensure equitable development, working for our infrastructure to be of high quality to sustain us, working so that we can respond to emergency situations as quickly as possible and be resilient, working so that our governance structures can work. you look at all our plans, these are the 5 things which are enshrined. So why can't we work towards it? That is the challenge. September, we are going again to report to the United Nations on what we have attained on the SDGs. But what have we attained in terms of reporting to our people? Ownership, inclusion, and being able to establish a system that can sustain itself. The National Development Planning Commission, all the members are there. And what I'm sharing today is a worry for them. Some of them are becoming disappointed with the very system they came to support. That the good ideas that they have, they are not able to bring it to bear in this process. And it has been the case in the past. It is still the case. How do we change this? And that is what Mr. Chairman, Honorable, Right Honorable, bring to us. How do we change the system? In the course of it, I've made so many recommendations, so I will not repeat myself, but it's basic that you must get the logic right, legitimacy right, ownership right, and inclusion right. Thank you very much.